Hello everyone, it's Larika here. Doing another book tag today. This is called the Perfection of Reading tag. And I was tagged by Daniela from the Uncommon Reader. It's a very interesting tag. It's based on the Buddhism, and it's based on, in Buddhism, you have these people or beings called bodhisattvas who are dedicating their lives for the benefits of others. And part of this dedication of their lives to others, they follow 6 perfections, which is ways to live your life. And this person created a tag. His name is, I have to look the name, Lekden, and he created this book tag on the perfection of reading based on these ways that the bodhisattvas live their lives. So the first question, I'm going to have to read it because it's a bit long, or prompt. The first prompt is the perfection of generosity. What is an experience of either book gifting or book receiving that was meaningful or memorable to you? So I would say book gifting is, I've had so many memorable experiences, very special ones, but the one that comes to mind the most is my mum. My mum always believed in me, and she had so much faith in me when it came to everything that I do, but especially my writing. And so she always gave me books, inspire me to read from a little girl. But the one that's the most special for me is an Afrikaans book. It's called the Afrikaanse Skryfgids, and it's the Afrikaans writing guide. And this is how it looks. I've kept it all these years. Really a beautiful book. It just talks about the South African writing industry, and especially Afrikaans, and kind of how publishing works in my country, and and all of those things. And for me, it's just, oh my gosh, it's so special to have this book because, I know she chose it for me and she bought it for me. So that is my number one gift receiving of a book. If I have to look at a book that's based on this perfection of generosity, just an actual book, I would choose this book that I mention almost in every single video, and it is called The Highland Witch by Susan Fletcher. Because for me, this book is all about generosity and kindness, and how this young girl who was classified as a witch, how she lived her life in absolute kindness and basically gave up everything for other people. So it's really a beautiful book. So that would be my book if I just look at the idea of the perfection of generosity. So the second prompt is the perfection of ethical discipline. And it goes like this. What are your best and worst reading habits? So, I don't know. This is probably a worst reading habit or a bad reading habit. When I was young and I was still in school, I would have a flashlight, as many of us did, and lying in bed under the covers, and I would read all through the night, and probably fall asleep 2 hours before my mum came and wake me up for school the next day. And then I was so tired I couldn't focus. So when the book was good, I have to read it through the night to finish it. So that was probably a bad reading habit. I don't think I have bad reading habits today or good reading habits. I just read. I like to read, and I just read. Now, if I have to choose a book based on the perfection of ethical discipline, I would choose one of Pema Chodron's books, one of my favorite books by her, which is called Welcoming the Unwelcome, Wholehearted Living in a Broken-Hearted World. I've had this book for years, and it's a beautiful book. And for me, this book would represent ethical discipline on, ways that you can be a good person in a tough world. Does that make sense? So I would say that is a good book of ethical discipline. And the third prompt is the perfection of patience, which is something I completely lack, but I'm working on it. The perfection of patience. What is a book that you anxiously waited for and did live up to the expectations you set for it? I don't really read new books as they come out. So yeah, I don't have a book that I anxiously waited for to buy and waited for it to be published so I could read it. I don't read books like that. However, if I can choose a book that might represent patience for me, I thought of two books. The first one is a book in the Bible, in Exodus, and it's the story of Jacob, and what is her name? Oh my gosh, Leah and Rachel. And so we all know the story, and if you don't, it's a story of Jacob who saw this woman, fell in love with her, wanted to marry her. Her name was Rachel, and her father said that Jacob had to work for 7 years in order to marry Rachel for him. So Jacob worked for his 7 years, it's forever, right? Talk about patience. And then he got married, but his wife had a veil. So he married her sister Leah. The father cheated him. So he discovered only after the wedding, when the veil was removed. And so the father said, you have to work another 7 years for Rachel. So he worked another 7 years, and finally he had the love of his life, basically. So he waited 14 years for her. So that's pretty impressive. The other is a fiction book. Well, you could call that story fiction. I don't know. Okay, anyway, the other one is a novel, and it's written by Jane Austen, and it's called Persuasion. And for me, this also is kind of a book about patience, because Anne Elliot and Captain Frederick Wentworth were literally, after they broke up, they sorted themselves out about 8 years later, and they got together. So that's also another long wait, isn't it? That's another patience idea. So number 4, the perfection of joyful effort. What is a book or series that you found difficult to complete but found to be ultimately worthwhile? I would say it's a book I read recently. It's still vivid in my head. And it's The Stranger, but it's also called The Outsider by Albert Camus. That book was an effort to read. It was pretty tough, but I'm glad I did it. So I found it worthwhile. It was on my Kindle, so I didn't bring my Kindle now, so I can't show you the cover. But I would say a book that represents joyful effort for me in general as the book would be one of my favorite authors too, Patti Smith's The M Train. The reason why I think this is a joyful effort book is this book just talks about her life, how she lives her life, the things she do every day, or the things she do every day, and just I don't know, for me she's a bodhisattva completely, because she just lives her life and she does the things she enjoys to do and travels and writes and make art, and she's an activist, it's just all these beautiful things. And so I think it's the book for me that represents joyful effort in the way that Patti Smith lives her life. So number 5 is The Perfection of Concentration. And what do you do, if anything, to get in a reading zone? What is your ideal reading environment? Oh man, I always have these. My answers are always. I don't have a perfect reading environment. I can read anywhere. I can read in a busy cafe, or I can read in a quiet room. I can read on the couch. I can read in the bed. I can read on a train. I have no special reading environment, and I think I learned that concentration when I was a journalist, because these were the early years when you still worked in the very lively, active newsroom, which was always busy. People always shouting at each other over the, communicating over desks and playing tricks and pranks and jokes on one another. And then you have to still focus and write with all that noise, your article that has to go in to the printer. I learned to just have to focus even in a noisy environment. So for me, reading, I can just read anywhere. And I was thinking the perfection of concentration. I can't think of a book that represents concentration. I'm sure there's many, but right when I was thinking about it, I just couldn't come up with one. Number 6, The Perfection of Wisdom. Oh, sounds so good. The Perfection of Wisdom. What is a book where you learn something, especially something unexpected, whether profound or mundane? I would say I have 2 books that I'm going to highlight here as well. So the first one is something that I learned, and it was for me unexpected. And it is this book called Short Stories in Swedish for Beginners. And this book is it's like short stories written in Swedish, what it says. And I was so surprised, because when I read this the first time I started reading this, I was very early into learning Swedish. I'm still completely illiterate in many ways, but this book really showed me how much Swedish I actually knew. And for me, that was really unexpected, because I did not expect to understand so much than I did of Swedish when I read this book. I was very, I could get this language. And the other book is maybe more, I don't know if it's profound or mundane, but it's just something that I learned when I read this book the first time. I've also read this book 2 or 3 times already, and it's called Pure by Andrew Miller. And what was interesting about this book is that it takes place in Paris in around 1785. And it's about this guy who has to go and clear out a cemetery in the middle of Paris, because this cemetery is starting to poison people with gases coming out of the, it was very unhealthy where it was based. And I never realized that cemeteries could be poisonous and bad for people. And then I read about the Bronte sisters who all got so terribly sick. And in this village where they lived down from the whole village. I don't know what the village, Horsten, I can never remember the village, I'll put it down below, had a church. And was a graveyard, and the graveyard was a little bit above, and the water would run down and make the drinking water bad, contaminate the drinking water. And people got super sick from the graves in those days. And so when I read this book, Pure, it made more sense, the story I heard of the Brontes and where they lived and how unhealthy that was. So yeah, that was just a very interesting little bit of information that I got from reading. And then that is it. That's all the questions. I really enjoyed this prompt. So Daniela, thank you so much for tagging me, because this was really interesting. The perfection of reading. I like doing this one. So I will tag some people below. If you feel like doing it, go for it. If you don't worry about it. So thank you so much for watching, and I wish for you a wonderful, wonderful day, and speak to you soon. Bye.